When we speak about emotional self-mastery, we are not talking about emotional suppression, nor about pretending not to feel. We are speaking about something far more rare, the capacity to experience emotion fully without being ruled by it. This is where power quietly forms. A man who understands this does not rush to explain himself, does not panic when tension arises, and does not attempt to regulate his worth through another person's reactions. He allows emotions to pass through him, rather than allowing them to control his behavior. From a psychological perspective, this kind of man signals something unmistakable, an internal center of gravity. Narcissistic personalities are exquisitely sensitive to emotional currents. They instinctively test for reactivity, for cracks where control can be inserted. When they encounter a man who does not flinch under provocation, who does not chase reassurance, who does not collapse into defensiveness or anger, something unexpected happens. The usual scripts stop working, and what cannot be controlled becomes fascinating. This self-mastery is not performative. It is not silence as punishment, nor calm as a tactic. It is the natural byproduct of inner work, of having faced one's own shadow, one's insecurities, and one's unresolved wounds. Such a man no longer hands emotional authority to the outside world. Praise does not intoxicate him. Disapproval does not destabilize him. He listens, observes, and responds rather than reacts. In relational dynamics, this creates a profound imbalance in his favor, not because he dominates, but because he cannot be emotionally hijacked. The narcissistic woman senses that her moods do not define him, that her withdrawal does not erase him, and that her approval is not the source of his identity. This is deeply unsettling, yet powerfully attractive. Emotional self-mastery communicates something primal. I am already whole, and where there is wholeness, there is gravity. In the end, the man who governs his inner world will never need to fight for power in the outer one. And that is the kind of power that changes every interaction it touches. Detachment is often misunderstood as indifference, but psychologically, it is something far more refined. Detachment is the ability to remain connected without being entangled. It is the recognition that your inner stability does not depend on another person's presence, approval, or emotional availability. A man who understands this does not disappear to provoke longing, nor does he cling to avoid loss. He simply remains rooted in himself. From a deeper psychological lens, detachment signals autonomy. Narcissistic personalities are drawn towards sources of emotional energy they can access, shape, and control. When a man is overly attached, he becomes predictable. His fears announce themselves. His behavior can be steered. But when he is detached, not withdrawn, not avoidant, but internally free, his emotional responses cannot be easily anticipated. This unpredictability creates tension, and tension fuels attraction. Such a man understands when silence is natural, not strategic. He does not rush to fill emotional gaps with explanations or reassurance. He allows space to exist without interpreting it as abandonment or rejection. This calm tolerance of uncertainty reveals psychological strength. It suggests that he has already faced the anxiety of separation within himself and survived it. Therefore, he does not fear distance, he uses it wisely. Detachment also dissolves the narcissistic leverage of withdrawal. When attention is removed as a test, he does not chase it. When affection fluctuates, he does not negotiate for consistency. He observes, evaluates, and adjusts his investment accordingly. This is deeply disorienting to someone who relies on emotional push and pull to establish dominance. Yet paradoxically, it is precisely this refusal to chase that pulls them closer. Philosophically, detachment is the refusal to confuse desire with identity. The man who understands this does not need the relationship to complete him, validate him, or rescue him from himself. He can enjoy connection without becoming consumed by it. And this reveals something unmistakable. He chooses rather than needs. In the end, detachment is not about walking away. It is about knowing you can. And the moment a man truly understands that, he stops being controlled by fear and begins moving through relationships with quiet authority. There comes a moment in every psychologically complex relationship when manipulation quietly enters the room, not loudly, not dramatically, but subtly. It arrives disguised as confusion, guilt, sudden withdrawal, selective affection, or shifting narratives. The man who does not understand this reacts. He explains, defends, justifies, and argues his way into exhaustion. But the man who does understands something deeper responds very differently. He sees clearly, and then he chooses restraint. This clarity does not come from suspicion or cynicism. It comes from psychological literacy. He recognizes patterns rather than getting lost in moments. He notices when affection appears only after compliance, when distance follows boundaries, when emotion is used as leverage rather than communication. And yet, and this is crucial, he does not confront it head on. He does not expose, accuse, or attempt to win. Because confrontation feeds the very dynamic he refuses to participate in. Instead, he disengages from the game itself. He does not reward manipulation with attention, nor does he punish it with rage. He simply removes emotional fuel. This is deeply unsettling to a narcissistic woman, because manipulation depends on reaction. It needs resistance, pleading, or outrage to confirm its power. When none arrives, the structure collapses. From a philosophical perspective, this man understands that not every truth needs to be spoken to be acted upon. Silence, when chosen consciously, becomes a form of wisdom. He allows the other person to reveal themselves fully without interference. He observes behavior over time rather than trusting words in isolation. This gives him an almost unsettling composure. He is not fooled, but he is also not consumed. Psychologically, this creates a reversal of power. The narcissistic woman senses that he sees through the illusion, but cannot be provoked into validating it. She feels exposed without being attacked. And paradoxically, this restraint can intensify attraction because it signals discernment without desperation. The man who understands manipulation does not fight shadows. He steps into clarity and lets illusions dissolve on their own. And when a man no longer argues with deception, he reclaims the one thing manipulation can never survive without: his attention. There is a subtle but decisive shift that occurs when a man stops organizing his life around being desired and starts organizing it around becoming who he is meant to be. Purpose does not announce itself loudly. It reveals it. Self through consistency, direction, and a quiet refusal to abandon one's path for emotional turbulence. A man anchored in purpose does not use ambition to escape intimacy, nor does he use relationships to escape responsibility. He understands that his life must move forward whether someone approves of it or not. Psychologically, this orientation changes everything. Narcissistic personalities are drawn to men whose attention can be captured, redirected, and consumed. When a man's primary focus becomes the relationship, his center of gravity shifts outward. His moods begin to track another person's approval. His time becomes negotiable. His boundaries soften. But when his purpose remains primary, when his work, values, and growth are non-negotiable, something profound happens. He becomes scarce without trying to be distant. This scarcity is not strategic. It is structural. His days have shape. His decisions are guided by long-term meaning rather than short-term emotional relief. He does not cancel his direction to soothe conflict, nor does he abandon his mission to rescue another from their chaos. This communicates an unspoken message. My life has momentum. And momentum is deeply attractive to someone who secretly feels fragmented inside. From a philosophical standpoint, purpose gives a man orientation in the world. It answers the existential question of, why am I here? Without requiring another person to fill that void. A narcissistic woman senses this immediately. She recognizes that she is not the axis around which his identity turns. She can join his journey, but she cannot replace it. This both frustrates and fascinates her. In relational terms, this anchoring creates emotional gravity. He does not demand support, yet he inspires it. He does not ask to be followed, yet others adjust themselves around his movement. His presence feels solid because it is not contingent. A man who chooses purpose over emotional orbit becomes undeniable, not because he seeks attention, but because he no longer needs it. And when a man's life is moving forward with meaning, only those willing to walk beside him can remain. Boundaries reveal themselves, not in what a man says, but in what he consistently allows. Many people believe boundaries are constructed through warnings, explanations, or ultimatums. In truth, the most powerful boundaries are often invisible. They are expressed quietly, through action, timing, and the willingness to withdraw energy when respect dissolves. A man who understands this does not argue for dignity. He lives it. Psychologically, narcissistic dynamics thrive where limits are negotiable. If disrespect is met with tolerance, if inconsistency is rewarded with patience, if emotional volatility is absorbed without consequence, the message is clear. Access is unconditional, but the man with unbreakable boundaries communicates something very different. When standards are violated, he does not escalate. He simply steps back. This creates an immediate and unsettling recalibration of power. What makes these boundaries so effective is their absence of drama. He does not announce consequences. He does not threaten departure. He does not seek validation for his decision. His behavior changes not as punishment, but as alignment. This distinction matters. Narcissistic personalities are highly attuned to emotional intensity. They can exploit anger, guilt, and even disappointment. But calm consistency leaves nothing to grip onto. From a philosophical angle, boundaries are an extension of self, respect made visible. In time, they answer the question, what am I willing to live with? Rather than, how can I control another person's behavior? A man grounded in this understanding does not try to fix disrespect. He recognizes it as information, and information guides action. In relationships, this creates a paradoxical pull. The narcissistic woman senses that access to him is conditional upon mutual regard. She realizes that emotional chaos does not earn closeness. Attempts to provoke, test, or destabilize him are met not with reaction, but with distance. This is both frustrating and compelling because it reveals a man who cannot be worn down. Ultimately, invisible boundaries are not walls. They are filters. They allow in what honors you and quietly remove what does not. And the moment a man stops negotiating his self-respect, he discovers that the strongest boundary of all is the one he is fully prepared to enforce by walking away. There is a profound psychological shift that occurs when a man no longer needs to be chosen in order to feel complete. This is not arrogance, nor emotional withdrawal. It is the quiet recognition that his identity does not depend on another person's gaze. He does not measure his worth by attention, affection, or approval. Instead, he stands on an internal foundation that remains intact whether he is admired or ignored. From a depth psychological perspective, this wholeness is rare because it requires confrontation with one's own inner emptiness. Many men unconsciously seek relationships to soothe unresolved wounds, to feel significant, or to escape loneliness. A narcissistic dynamic feeds on this need. It offers validation in exchange for control. But the man who is already whole cannot be bought in this way. He desires connection, but he does not require it to exist. This inner completeness produces a subtle but unmistakable presence. He is engaged but not desperate, open but not dependent. He listens without seeking approval and speaks without fearing rejection. When affection is offered, he receives it without clinging. When it is withdrawn, he does not collapse. This emotional neutrality is deeply disarming to a narcissistic woman because it denies her the central role she unconsciously seeks: to be the source of identity, meaning, or salvation. Psychologically, she senses that she cannot own him. She cannot rescue him, fix him, or define him. And paradoxically, this awakens attraction. What cannot be possessed becomes fascinating. What does not need becomes valuable. His wholeness mirrors the fragmentation she cannot escape, and this creates both longing and discomfort. Philosophically, to be whole is to have made peace with oneself. It is to have integrated one's strengths and shadows, ambitions and limitations. Such a man does not outsource his self-esteem. He chooses relationships from abundance, not hunger. And because he chooses freely, he can also leave freely. In the end, the man who is whole does not ask to be loved. He allows it. And when a man knows he is complete without being chosen, he becomes someone others feel compelled to choose, not out of need, but out of recognition.